Taking a special look at Latin America, one of the big opportunities right now, farmland. Yes, investors snatching up fertile ground to satisfy a world's growing demand for food. Our next guest is deeply involved in that business. I want to welcome Eduardo Elsztain. He is the chairman of the agriculture company Cresud, which runs more than 2 million acres of land in Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, and Paraguay. Eduardo, good to have you with us on Bloomberg.
How are you?
So explain a little bit about what Cresud does, because it doesn't seem normal. I mean, going out, you just buy up farmland and then you put it under the plow?
Cresud is a company that was formed by a European family about 75 years ago that they started, and as a private company. It has 50 years listed in Buenos Aires stock market. The original strategy was to acquire land in Argentina. We bought it in '94 in the middle of the period of the booming of emerging market. We injected big amounts of capital. We also brought more management. We have a company that has 3 generations of managers. We have grandpas and the children and the great-grandchildren having it in the same company. It's a company that managed today 2.5 million hectares. We produce soybean, corn, sunflower, wheat, meat, and milk.
Everything.
Everything
you need to eat on the table.
Yes, everything you eat. And we know that it's an area where we should be really dedicating a lot of investment because the demand is growing very steadily.
Now, you talk about demand growing steadily. Has demand for investable land? I mean, because it's one thing to have land, but it's another thing to be able to actually consummate a deal and put it under the plow and get it into production.
To develop land takes a lot of time. You need to think in long-term periods of investment. Since we acquired this company, which is about 16 years ago, we've been acquiring in the range of more than 30 or 35 farms. We have 2 lines of business. One is the production and also the trading of farmlands. We develop land, we increase value, and we trade farms. We did it concentrated in Argentina for the first decade. 5 years ago, we started replicating the strategy in Brazil, which is also a country which is aggressively acting in the food business. And there we have close to 200,000 hectares through a company called Brazil Agro, which is the main shareholder is Cresud. And of course, as you ask, to buy a farm is not just to buy it and hold it. I know that now that the food security is in discussion all over the world, many people buy a farm, but to make it having return, you need to invest.
Right, to make it productive.
You make it productive, you really need the local managers, and that's what we are really good at, and we are very proud of doing.
Now, have you seen a lot of flows of, let's say, U.S. money into places like Argentina, in Brazil, in search of farmland and then driving up prices?
I would believe that the trend of investment will grow steadily. There's been some individuals, highly net worth individuals, and some hedge funds, which they understand, and I agree with that having an investment in real asset is a protection. We are in a period where for the last 34 years, the financial assets had been the star. And we know, being Argentinian, what is the bonanza of printing money, what's the final effect. And we've been, for the last decade and a half, concentrating all our investments in real assets. And we call real assets to own farms, to own real estate, and the liquid position in real asset, we call it gold and silver. We believe that the trend of moving liquidity into real assets, and especially in this time where the population is growing from 6 billion today, I would expect that by year 2050, the population will be 9 billion. And the total production today is 2.8 billion tons of grains, and by the 2050, we will need double of that production. So to create land available is not that easy. And we, of course, preempt the market. To put the portfolio we did, it took us a decade and a half. And we know that the flows of funds are going to be increasing steadily, especially these next years.
How much does the success of what Cresud is doing depend on the export-led economy?
Well, most of the products we have go to the export country. There's very few countries like Argentina that can produce 7 times what we consume locally. So that's a very interesting value. You have to understand that when we export commodities, we export the food and the water. And the demand we expect to be growing because the emerging economies are growing at double speed of the developed world. In 1980, 20% of the growth of the GDP was coming from the emerging market. Now these growing economies are bringing 60%. They triple the percentage of the growth of the economy. That means higher income per person. A higher income is better food. And once people have access to a better food, like having proteins and meat or rice, fried rice, you don't go back. So I think that the trend of demand and prices is going to be steady for the next decades. And I believe that that's a very steady, very strong trend. Now, we are exporting the basic product, which is the raw grain, but we should take the value added of industry, and that's a challenge for our countries.
I want to thank you very much. Eduardo Elsztain, sharing your thoughts as the chairman of Cresud, giving us some insight into what's happening in farmland and in agriculture in Latin America.